Here we go. All right, welcome to the XeroLinux channel. Today I have my first guest ever, and who better to have as a guest than Niccolò from the KDE community.
Hi.
Let us know more about yourself and what you do on the KDE team, etc., etc.
Yeah, in KDE, most of my work is toward Plasma, and in particular the Plasma panel. That's usually what I work on, the widgets maybe inside of it. And I'm mostly in the VDG, so the visual design group, but I also do some work in the promotion channel to actually promote KDE, stuff like writing announcements, working on the announcement videos, these kind of things. I'm also currently the goalkeeper of one of the 3 KDE goals, which is consistency. This is just for a couple of weeks more, because in October there will be Academy. 3 new goals will be elected, because we actually vote for them, and we'll have 3 new goalkeepers, but till then I'm still the consistency goalkeeper. So this is what I do in KDE, and yeah.
And what were your contributions to the KDE as a desktop environment?
In general, I implemented the floating panel in the latest release of KDE Plasma. I've also implemented margin areas, which basically mean that widgets that are on the left of the panel are bigger compared to the widgets that are on the right. I've also worked on the shadows, actually making shadows in KDE Plasma look nice for applets and the panel. That actually took a lot of time, even though it's just the shadows, this kind of things.
And speaking of the panel, I once asked you via Twitter, why did you opt to make the panel gain 100 pounds when you maximize Windows if you have it sticky, not hidden?
Okay, so that was a 2-step issue. Initially, I decided for the panel to maximize as it does now whenever you maximize a window, mostly because the alternatives sounded worse. I mean, you could keep the margin around of it, but you would see the wallpaper, and I think that when you have a maximized window, it doesn't look that pretty. If you go out and look for, I don't know, Windows mockups that have a floating panel, usually when you maximize a window, it defloats. However, the issue is that usually it defloats without increasing in height. So that would require for it to move, essentially, like it would have to move down. And that is code-wise a bit of a mess. And initially, the issue wasn't that noticeable because it would only extend towards the bottom. So it would become bigger, but just on the bottom to fill up the margin. But later on, I had to change it because I had little time to make it extend both on the bottom and on the top, which of course worsened the issue. So now I'm gonna keep working on it. That is currently my plan. I have some other bug fixes on the floating panel first to solve. Then I will start looking in ways to make it thinner when a window is maximized. There are very many different ways, so I really don't know right now what I'll try to settle in. If it stays as it is now, it means that code-wise everything else would be a mess. That would be it's not necessarily true, I have to check, but if it does, then yeah.
Well, you know where that's going to lead. What about Latte?
Latte doc, yeah, that is complex. First, to address the first question that people usually make, can't KDE port Latte features to the Plasma panel?
This question shouldn't be asked that way. The question I was going to ask is, it's more in line with what you do, panel related. Why not pick it up yourself and replace the KDE panel with Latte completely? And forget about the KDE panel. Instead of integrating code done one way with another code that's done completely differently, just completely replace.
That's also often proposed. That's actually a proposal that I made inside of KDE a couple of years ago when starting out the consistency proposal. But eventually the developer were mostly against it, and now that I'm inside of KDE for some years, I also realized that it's not that good of an idea. Mostly because latte dock is extremely powerful, like much more powerful than the average user needs. And this leads to, first of all, some bugs, because when you have something that powerful, you're gonna have some bugs inside of it, even for users that don't use that many features. And also you need to have an UI that allows the user to use those features. And a very complex UI for simple users, well, it's not good for them. They don't need those features. They don't need the UI to even expose those features at all. So that would be a bit of an issue. Also, from a technical point of view, we can work on integrating more latte inside of Plasma in various ways, making sure that it uses the APIs of Plasma and everything is exposed, but actually making it the default probably is not what we're looking for, both in terms of bugs and features. The Plasma panel is rather simple in its code, actually, and much less buggier than Lattedock. I think that's what my impression is, and also lighter on the resources. So having a lighter out-of-the-box alternative is, I think, what would work best.
That is another thing I wanted to address. This goes in line with that question. Is okay, the latte panel, if you want to keep working on the latte panel and keep it because of resource reasons, because as you said, latte panel, latte dock is very complex and as a result uses a lot of resources, especially since I ship my distro with latte panel and latte dock. And I tell users, if you have 8 gigabytes or lower, don't you switch to a different rice. I make different rices, complete rices that I distribute. But that being said, you should add more options for the KDE panel, like control the translucency, not just translucent and that's it.
And do that though.
Oh.
By the Plasma theme. That's all. That's the whole idea.
By applying different Plasma themes. I use Layan. By the way, I've been using Layan for a long time because it's the only one that fits my color scheme. But users like control. They don't want to have to apply a different theme. If they like one theme and control, like myself, have control over the translucency while using that theme that out of the box does not supply enough translucency. Have a bar, just move it around to enable not something complex, nothing, just open a dialogue or something, just a bar that they move.
Let me actually address two things, both the translucency and also often asked the corner radius for panels. That's also often asked. There's a common issue in both, which is the reason why we won't surely 100% implement this in Plasma 5. And the issue is that currently the appearance of the panel is dictated by the SVG themes. So Plasma is currently the look of Plasma is coded inside of an SVG. Now, the only way to actually customize live the transparency or the corner radius of a Plasma theme would be to change the SVG live. And that's simply impossible. We can't do that. So, and to add to that, the transparency of the panel is not actually just the transparency that you see. There's actually two layers that are both slightly transparent. Yeah, you have the panel and then the contrast effect. And both of these add some opacity. So we would have to somehow change both at the same time. Wouldn't really work out. What could change is if in Plasma 6 we manage to land a new way to customize Plasma themes. So instead of SVGs, something like CSS as an example. If, and that's a big if, we manage to get something like that in Plasma 6, then it's much easier to actually change a CSS property live compared to editing an SVG. So that could allow us to actually add such a slider. But right now, with the SVG theming we have, it's completely out of the window.
It's understandable. If it's controlled by SVGs, it has to modify values in the background live. So I would see how that would make things more difficult. If it was value-driven, more a line of value-driven, it would make things simpler, much simpler. So you're saying that might come in Plasma 6?
It really depends on whether we'll have a new theming system, and that is something that we explicitly want to achieve in Plasma 6. However, as far as I know, there's nobody actually actively working on it, so right now, who knows?
Well, hopefully somebody will take care of it. I'm just picking up. Oh, okay. Since I'm a writer at heart myself, I would love to know what tools do you like and use to make your own KDE setup look good, if any, like Gigantum, Lightly, Latte, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, right now, sadly, from some point of view, sadly, I am just keeping the default Plasma because having to, work so much on it, it's just easier for me to have the defaults. However, in the past, before becoming a developer, I did customize my system a lot, and I used to do my own Plasma themes with SVGs, so just Inkscape. And for the look of the applications, I used Quantum themes indeed. That was actually before Lightly, so it didn't exist yet. And again, Quantum themes, I usually downloaded them. Then there's a lot of options to customize them inside of Quantum, and it's also still an SVG, so you can still use Inkscape to customize them. If you go to my Reddit account and go see my older posts, there are still some screenshots of some weird, crazy setups that I had years back.
Yeah, you had some weird setups. I've been following you for a while. You did share them on video once.
Yeah, right.
And I love the wallpaper, the sphere-like wallpaper that you're so proud of and like.
Yeah.
It is a very geometrical. It shows your mathematical background.
Yeah, that's for sure. Especially considering that wallpaper is actually generated by a Python script and not using any 3D library at all. It's like literally pixel per pixel generated by a semi-pseudo 3D engine that I wrote just to do that wallpaper.
It's really simple and nice. It's very how should I put it? Very geometrical.
Yeah.
I'm not good in math, so me and math are not very good friends. 1 + 1 = 11 for me. So
that's very JavaScript of you, but okay.
No, I'm not mentioning. I don't know how to. I'm not a developer, so I created my own distro without knowing how to develop anything, and I still don't know. That's why I call for help.
Yeah.
So. And I needed to ask you, why do you use KDE Neon, not Arch? By that I mean, why did you choose a Debian system, not Arch, which is a rolling release? I know that question was on everyone's mind.
Okay, so Arch, or Arch, I don't know how it's pronounced.
It's Arch.
Arch, okay. I will use Arch when there's a UI graphical installer. That is never, I guess. So
you mean officially? Because unofficially there is.
Officially. No, officially. I mean officially.
Oh, yeah. And, officially they're debating it right now.
A UI one? A UI one? Graphical
UI. They're debating it right now. It's still in the processing phase. They're worried too much from what I read online, reading the discussion. They're too worried about the desktop environment to use if they switch to a graphical interface, because you need a underlaying desktop environment to show the graphical installer. And they have another worry where, in case they add a desktop environment, it might increase the size of the installer over 900 megabytes, which is the maximum size of a CD-ROM. So I didn't know. I didn't understand this CD-ROM thing. Nobody uses a CD-ROM these days, but that's what they said.
No, I have used Arch in the past, but nowadays I try as much as possible where I can to be like a user. I want to approach Linux as if I was a random user that knows not much. So if I were to try to install Arch, I mean, probably I would be able to, but I don't think a user would be. So I just try to be a user. And of course, I have a bit more knowledge, but it tells me about how different people would approach the software.
Well, KDE Neon is Ubuntu based. I know it's you have an option to get the latest KDE on KDE Neon because it's the distro of choice for KDE.
Yeah.
But for example, Debian 11, Bullseye, they're using. If I tell you what they are using, they're using KDE 520.
Yeah, they're very stable in that.
Yeah, so I'm like, way too old. I wanted to use a Debian, but KDE Neon was too bleeding edge and it was too unstable for me because I tinker a lot with my system. So I tried to find another Debian that had the latest KDE. There is none.
Kubuntu.
There's only KDE Neon.
Kubuntu.
Oh yeah, the Kubuntu,
Kubuntu
but
is
the installer was very slow,
distro.
so I gave up during the installation.
There's also KDE Neon is actually separated in KDE Neon user and KDE Neon developer. Developer is always latest stuff, even from master if you're doing testing. KDE Neon user instead, if I recall correctly, should be always only the latest official release of KDE.
Yeah, I use Arch for now because it's completely bleeding edge and it's easy to create your own repositories. It gives you freedom. And I use the Calamares installer for the installation process. But I wanted to ask you, reporting bugs can be a tedious job, especially for new users. I know you have a tutorial on how to do that, which I have shared multiple times on my socials, by the way. Still, some users find it complex. Any plans on making it a much simpler process in the future?
There was an improvement recently where we actually did a redesign of the bugs.kde.org page just to make sure that it looked not like it came out of 50 years ago. So that was an improvement. In the future, we don't know yet. Like, one possibility in theory would be to switch to GitLab bugs instead of Bugzilla. And usually the user experience of reporting to GitLab is better compared to Bugzilla. That's what I currently see. However, that's not currently happening. That's not something we have in plan on the short term. It's something that could happen in the future. And the reason for that is that currently GitLab issues are more about developers keeping track of things that they are doing or issues that they found. So again, we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, that makes sense. But I prefer GitLab or GitHub issues because they're easily trackable. Whereas on the bugs.kde.org, the issue is you have to hunt for the hashtags and find where it becomes a hunting game on the current bugs.kde.org. That's why I don't report bugs. I tell someone who knows how to, and they report the bugs, or I wait for a crash to happen and use that dialogue to send the bug report. Yeah, that's why I asked the question, because even for myself, who maintains a distro, I encounter more bugs than the regular user because I'm maintaining a distro. Like the Kirigami, the recent Kirigami issue for the scroll thing that caused a lot of stir in the development world. There was a certain line that was put there in the QT code, QML code or QT code. I'm not a developer. The guy told me, and it was causing issues where the window would crash whenever you tried to scroll. But that was addressed. That was reported and then subsequently fixed. That's what I love about KDE. You guys are the guys in KDE. They're around the clock. And they work around the clock. It's they don't sleep. But which brings me to a question: how does the KDE team decide what makes it into KDE by default and what doesn't? Complex question, but
yeah. Can you give me an example?
Like features, basically. I'm talking about features.
Okay. So there is no really concrete written down guide on that. It's Sorry?
It's a voting system.
No, there's no voting system. There's no such thing. Usually you just go to the VDG, which is the Visual Design Group, or any group that's relevant to the feature that you want to develop, and you say, hi, I want to put effort into developing this feature. And then you see a bit of direction. There will be people that are for it, some people will be against it, there will be some discussion. And if you think after the discussion that there is agreement enough to implement the feature, you just do it, you propose the merge request or the pull request, and then you discuss there, and if there's enough people accepting the patch, it gets landed. So it's really all about discussion. There's no voting and such.
Okay. I was under the impression there was a voting system for some reason.
The only thing that we vote for, literally the only thing that, as far as I'm aware, actually two things. The first one is KDE goals, but that's not really about things that get inside of KDE releases. It's just in general what guides KDE. But the only thing that we vote for to get things into releases are wallpapers. Usually we vote for wallpapers.
Wallpaper.
Because it's so subjective that there's no point.
But anyway, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a technical question now. As an NVIDIA GPU owner, I have not been able to experience Wayland. Simply because I cannot even log into that session. I keep getting thrown back to the login page, SDDM. Any idea why? Also, when and if that will ever be addressed?
Yeah, the issue here is that there's, as far as I know, no single issue that should be fixed and that will solve everything. Often such complex things have many possible issues underneath that could cause them, and slowly we're getting rid of them, those that we can actually address. If you go see the changelog for Wayland for each release, you always see that there are various bugs that were fixed, even related to NVIDIA GPUs. That said, in the specific, I don't quite know everything. I'm not following Wayland development in particular, so you should probably check out with a Wayland team. But in general, it's slowly getting there. Every release is closer. I don't know if there's something that NVIDIA is doing that should change in the future to allow KDE to better support Wayland on NVIDIA, or if it's KDE that should continue improving. I don't know about that.
It's with NVIDIA it's a very how we say, it's a troublesome thing, because I cannot log in. It's simply I log in, it throws me back to SDDM. So I haven't been, and as a distro maintainer, sometimes users expect you to provide support for Wayland. I keep telling them I can't, because I can't even log into the thing. So I removed Wayland from my distro completely. So I was like, you want Wayland, you click a button in my tool, you install Wayland, and it's on you. But the reason I asked that question is because I've seen a lot of work being done around Wayland. But this issue has been there since day one. This specific issue, cannot log in, I was like, okay, I have a book full of bug fixes for Wayland, but this issue specifically, still, it's very far away, I guess, on the bug on the header. Or it could be an NVIDIA thing that the KDE team who's working on the Wayland side cannot control. So I don't know. I'm not a developer, so I just thought I'd ask you the question. Maybe you had an idea. Okay, that's going to be a very difficult question. By the way, I love the amount of updates KDE has been getting lately, but don't you think it's a bit too much, too fast? I mean, why not take a breather for around 6 months to a year, concentrate on squashing all the annoying little bugs, then go back to adding features?
Yeah, that's a request I also see often, and the answer to that is that. For normal Plasma 5 releases, it doesn't quite make sense. Like, yes, from a technical point of view, we could take a 6 months hiatus and don't push out any update just to do bug fixing. The issue is that developers inside of KDE for sure, but also outside, because we get a lot of contributions from people that are not stably inside of KDE community, just won't stop making new features. Like, they will continue on making new features, they will propose them, and we'll have to be the bad guys who says, no, I'm sorry, you have to wait for 6 months, because we're currently on a bug fixing phase. And so what happens is that after 6 months, we have like hundreds of pull requests and merge requests from people inside and outside the KDE community to add new features. And a lot of new features that could have been inside of KDE will have to be actually cancelled completely, because you can't just expect a pull request to continue live for 6 months. It will have to be rebased. The original developer will have to come back and make sure that everything still works, and that actually requires some effort. So all of that work basically will be wasted, and we can't reliably make sure that nobody works on new features for KDE Plasma for such a long period of time. What could happen, I guess, I don't know yet, but in the future what could happen is that we could argue for a Plasma 6 hiatus just before releasing Plasma 6 to make sure that everything works there. But that's not going to be up to me. It's going to be up to the core KDE Plasma developers, and it's up to their judgment if it's actually feasible. It's not if it's a good idea, and is it actually possible to do so without wasting a lot of developers' time? We'll have to see.
Well, in line with this question, when Qt6 will be finally released and public?
It is released, Qt6. Yeah. So Qt6 has been released for quite some time now, and slowly applications in general are moving to it. As an example, the latest version of OBS, if I recall correctly, is Qt6, and that's what I'm using actually currently. I'm using OBS with Qt6. Now, for KDE Plasma to switch to Qt6, I mean, technically, you could have smaller apps like Dolphin ported. I think some are already ported to Qt6 and run as Qt6 apps already. But in general, there is the intention is to have make a new version of the KDE frameworks. So we should have the KDE frameworks 6, which will surely port to Qt6, but also address some of the APIs that we wanted to change, and we can only do so in a major version change, so it will have some changes. And when that is done, there will be I guess that everything user-wise will be ported to Qt6 as well, but first I think we need the KDE frameworks. Now, I'm not at all following the developments of that. There is a team that's working on it, especially core KDE Plasma developers, and I don't know, I have no clue exactly how much time is left. Could be 1 year, could be 2 years top, maybe. It should be close now, not too far. So it's really unclear, but there is currently going intention in that. And of course, when you rewrite something, you also not only fix some API, but also change some stuff that you couldn't change before. Like as an example, we wanted to change the theming system. I don't know yet if we will be able to do that.
Well, at least not before Plasma 6.
No, for sure not.
The future of KDE is very bright. Where do you see KDE heading? Do you see it heading on the changing the, for example, Oxygen? That theme you talk about it a lot. I used to like it when I started because Manjaro was using it by default, I think, at some point. But do you see yourself shipping more themes out of the box versus or keeping the same amount of themes, or you want to optimize it for performance rather than features? How do you see that?
I'm pretty sure that we won't change theme anytime soon. I think we will stick with just one, which is Breeze. Now, Breeze is getting revamped in general, has been revamped a lot lately with newer components and prettier stuff. It is different than the very original Breeze, but that's just because Breeze is improving. We could give it a different name, but really what's the point, since we're just doing little changes from each release to the next one. So we will probably just stick with Breeze and do not add any other theme by default. That's how I see it heading. If in the future we want to change the theme, possible but unlikely.
Do you think you're going to start including a little bit of translucency to Breeze?
Well,
without using extra plugins, that is.
I actually increased the translucency of KDE Plasma panels and applets by a significant amount recently, maybe 1 year ago or something. So that I did that. Yeah, it's much more transparent compared to years ago.
I think with that I have asked everything I had to ask. Just one last thing. Good job on everything you do yourself as well as the team. You're in contact with at least a few people on the team.
Yeah.
I hope. KDE is the desktop environment for people like me and you who want freedom of customization. The freedom that KDE provides is unparalleled. Other than that, great job, and hopefully we see KDE evolves to something a little bit more stable. Nothing is 100%. We all know that. It does not exist.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit inevitable that KDE having so many features, so much customization, it will be, I think, the desktop with the greatest amount of bugs compared to other desktops, necessarily because of it is also, I think, the desktop with the greatest amount of features. Now, this doesn't mean that it has to have them there. We can do anything about that, of course. There is a proposal that I like very much by Nate and that I hope to see elected as a goal this October, which hopes to address the situation from many points of view. Like, as an example, putting more care into making sure that we have tests and that tests pass, as an example. Also having a QA team that reviews things more thoroughly and make sure that there are no bugs. These kind of things, just making sure that we do have process in place and automatize things like tests that make sure that we don't ship new bugs with each feature. It's something that there are some proposals to improve from, and I hope to see KDE get better from this point of view. Yeah,
like a dedicated bug testing team or something like that. Just let the people out there on the interwebs know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Vigero. I'm on YouTube as Niccolò V, and I'm also doing a podcast on pretty much all podcast platforms, which is called Linux Daily, Linux, daily . And that talks about the latest news in the KDE world, like every day. So every day a new episode is published Monday through Friday. So if you're interested in that, you can also find that one.
You can send me all the links, which I will include in the video description once this video is published. You can DM me on Twitter. As for me, I'm Dark Zero. You know where to find me. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Discord, I'm on Telegram. Just search for Dark Zero, you'll find me. I'm not hiding. I'm an open book. Well, with that said, hope to see you guys on the flip side.